The Ground Screams to Whisper is the next one up. Do we have the artists for The Ground Screams to Whisper?
Yes, you do.
Oh, fantastic. Hello, hello.
Hi. It's my tomorrow.
Oh
Or
my
rather,
goodness.
my today.
I don't know what day I'm in ever now that I have a toddler. It's all just one big
thank
blur.
God it's Friday for me, because I kind of don't do anything on Friday as pertains to work and my company. So thank you very much. It was really, I'm really honored to be a part of this. My name is Nyambura Warunge. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya right now. And I'm presenting a project, no slides, just me and my cue cards. It's called The Ground Screams to Whisper. It's a transmedia project that I'm developing. It's in the idea to development stage, really. I started working on it, looking at different, articles on female militancy during the colonial era in Kenya, which kind of takes us from like the early 20th century to the 1920 something. And what I want to explore in this transmedia project that incorporates VR as a high-end aspect of it, but to really engage with audiences that are going to be part of mostly the African diaspora, and just in terms of audience and accessibility, would be using mobile telephony, which would then be that would then be around AR and WebXR access. And it really looks into the audio textual world of the rituals and songs of insurgency that these women practice, because they were part of a forced labor environment and they were part of a forced labor camps on different coffee and tea plantations. And we're very much in the research stage. So I'll just take you through the different ideas that I do have. I'm looking forward. I know we're all tired. So if you do have any feedback that you think about, I'm going to drop my email, and you feel free to email me for what the feedback you have. My inspiration is that I actually live on a former coffee plantation. And this former coffee plantation is part of a move to, upwardly mobile Kenyans from all different cultural groups who are now moving and settling in these places. And one time what had happened is my friend and I, because we still live in a fairly racist society where particularly women who are African, when you are there and you're single, you're not with a man, most people ask you like, why are you in a space? Which for me, it really still boggles my mind, but it does happen. So we moved from one restaurant to another. And when we did end up in the restaurant that was acceptable for us, we were reading the menu, and it's part of the Karen Blixen Museum. And the Karen Blixen Museum is a museum that documents very beautifully, in a country that is independent, the foibles of a petty aristocrat from the Netherlands who came and settled in Kenya, for whom the place I live in, Karen, is named after. And it has this benign history around how Karen came to be. It's a coffee plantation, and the coffee you're drinking is, part of this history and all of that. However, the history is really around female, women, and child labor that was forced into these camps to create this idea of luxury that we do have and possess in this place. So one important aspect to this story is a retelling of a colonial aristocratic history that has been captured in movies such as White Mischief, as well as Out of Africa with Meryl Streep and Robert Redford. And what I want to concentrate in this story is in collecting, part of my research is collecting the rituals and the songs that they sang in order to keep the insurgency going amongst themselves, and part of a movement that was called women's riots, particularly by the colonial government for the stolen women, and really tell the story from a laborer's point of view. I'm tapping into the experience of the stolen women and children, and it marks a very specific period in which, more often than not, in the traditional setting, it was men who left the home states and were taken to work. But because coffee became a very important commodity from the colonial government, now women and children were stolen, and brought into different spaces around, particularly in the area that I live, that is called Kiambu District, to come and farm. And because of that, as much as the colonial government and Winston Churchill were against it, they were expected to have high returns. So they were told to encourage what they called the natives to participate in this culture production. So for me, part of the gameplay of this, when you enter the world, as I said, I'm looking to create a virtual reality world that would then be accessible through mobile telephony and web. And part of it is a juxtaposition of the freedom songs that they sang, as well as the colonial ordinances that were given and the different speeches by either the men who supported the colonial government or the people who opposed. Because what happened with the women, as much as they were involved in the freedom struggle, they were more often than not completely excluded. However, this is part of an excavating of women's histories that are a very important part of our public histories. And I'm linking this game, so there's a gameplay itself, and I'm linking it to also public programs that can play out in terms of linking with different universities that have history programs that can then also create curricula around this type of XR experience to influence the work that they're doing. So with the gameplay, I'm creating a universe that is driven by song and text, as well as ensuring that what I want to do is the main point, the main space that I'm working with is actually, I'm disrupting the Karen Blixen Museum, which has really created a space where Karen Blixen, as a minor aristocrat's life, has been lauded and given the mystique that it needs for people to come and see who Karen Blixen is. And one of the discussions that I am going into with the National Museums of Kenya is how we are able to disrupt colonial spaces that we actually present as having historical value without deconstructing how that historical value plays into our larger history. So that it is part, at the beginning, it is a space-based experience. However, what I want to do is then create ways in this space-based experience that can work on a web app that people then start to play with and have this engagement and find the way through a world to sort out different mysteries in terms of having different moments, because the women's days would start in the morning, and what are the songs that they would sing that were part of the insurgency to keep their spirits up as they continued through the day, and what were the different historical ordinances that they had to play against. And so as the users, as the audience, we're playing to finish their day, and finish the day, as I would say, in triumph, so to speak. I create, within these different mundane moments, I look to create breathing moments in the gameplay, which is about the exploration of the rituals of femininity and rites of passage. Because at the end of the day, as this woman was stolen, as this children was stolen, these children grew up on plantations away from home. How did they keep home alive? So within this moments of gameplay, I'm looking to create breathing moments that we get to explore the worlds even more intimately through different songs. And right now, as I said, I'm in the idea development stage, where I'm now finding certain songs that most of them are have been in text. So I'm also looking, as I'll tell you in a couple of minutes, well, less than a minute, that I'm looking to work with a musician to recreate some of the songs, because they exist mostly in text and not necessarily in an audio file. I haven't been able to find them in an audio file. So with the types of visuals that I'm looking at huts. I'm looking at huts in a derelict space, because that's where they would exist. However, I'm also then trying to, in this VR animated world, recreate how they made where they were habitable for them a reflection of their home, how they played with song and dance and rituals that were very important to keeping them alive and their spirit alive. My unique insight into this is really in terms of developing the soundscape, because I find, aside from the images, the soundscape is very important, both anthropologically for us, where we come from, which is Nairobi, Kenya, to continue to have a record of songs and rituals that we do not ordinarily have in a more public space. And that's why this notion of creating a gameplay, a game, something that exists on the web and something that exists in VR is important to me, that it brings something that of historical value and for us to explore into a public space. As I said, why this story needs to be told is because of women's experiences, particularly for me, where I come from, Kenya. Our experiences as women of colonialism have always been swept under the carpet. It's always been portrayed as women were passive, they never had a voice, but they did. And one of the ways that they did have a voice was they actually supported one of the leaders of our independence movement in terms of rioting, refusing to pick coffee, which was very big because they would have suffered. And they also gathered different money from different spaces to ensure that he was taken care of during his detention. So I find that this is also very important in terms of how they participated in the freedom struggle.
Nyambura, I don't want to cut you off too much, but we're over 10 minutes. Just wanted to give you a time check.
Basically, the whole how the project works is from the gameplay itself and into participating with different public programs and different spaces of heritage that I have identified with the Museum of British Colonialism and the National Museums of Kenya. So thank you very much.
Fascinating topic. So just to summarize, so I understand, you're looking at doing this as a web VR project, web-based VR project. So you'll be creating a 3D environment that these characters play out in, and you'll be using a game engine to create all the assets and everything?
Yes, that's what I want to do at the beginning so that it is accessible. Don't get me wrong, I love VR, I work in VR, I think it's amazing. But if we're going to get the audiences and participation to make that leap, I really feel that it's important in terms of accessibility and people learning about this project to exist simultaneously on an accessible platform, whether mobile telephony or web, as well as a VR space that is headset oriented.
Totally dig it. And also just to clarify, you're looking for sort of feedback right now, or do you have because you don't have a project profile up, are you submitting to the Black Realities grant by tomorrow, or?
For now, no, I'm not submitting. I'm really looking for feedback, and within the community, I also want to let you know I'm here for you to ask me for any feedback on your project. It's part of the journey of development, and really my one ask is to connect with an executive producer who not only is interested in a project, but really works in a transmedia environment.
Dig it. Well, I think you described the project really eloquently. So I think for this, yeah, I'm going to post all these presentations. And I think the fastest, easiest thing to do is in YouTube, you can select a time code to start the video at. So what I would do is let's get this presentation that you just made and let's share it with the rest of the Artizen community and find that executive producer for you. Because you've got the chops in your past work, and this is a really interesting topic.